Welcome. San Diego, Southern California. Give it a few more seconds here. Michigan, Signal Hill, California. All right. We've got most people here. I'm going to go ahead and end the polling and share those results with you. Looks like we've got a lot of 4 o'clock West Coast people in the house. So welcome. I have one other poll that I would like to share with you in just a moment. So if you want to, you can go ahead and click close poll on your screen if it didn't remove it. And we'll get going here a little bit. So as we get started here, we're talking about the listing presentation. And the listing presentation is going to be your time to shine. So some of the things that we're going to talk about over the next 60 minutes is how you can build an awesome listing presentation, promote yourself, your professionalism, highlight your marketing and the strategies that can help you win. And you all just have to bear with me. It is Friday and my brain and my mouth are just not getting along. So let's have a little fun here. Let's have one more poll. Give me just a moment here. Let's find out who is on the call. So how long have you been in real estate? Are you 12 months or less, 1 to 5 years, 6 to 10? Let's see what we've got here. And then as soon as I get most of you entered, I will share the results. It's always nice to know what we have in the house. Have a lot of people, 1 to 5 years. We've really got a mix of everyone. Give you a few more seconds here. Anyone else want to participate in the poll? All right, well, let's see what we have here. Let me share this with you. And here are our results. So we have a little bit of everything, and I love that. It will give us the ability when I ask certain questions, if you want to put some insight into the chat, be really, really helpful. And I will address some of you newer people along the way. So with that, let's go ahead and let's get going. So I've created a little bit of an agenda of what we're going to cover. I know that this is called the Ultimate Listing Presentation, and we would love to leave here with an Ultimate Listing Presentation, but this is more about giving you some things to think about to create that. We're going to review what you should know and what you should include in your listing presentation. We're going to talk about why a listing-focused business, what the research reveals. This content was developed by interviewing top agents across all of CB, and we have CB and our affiliate side on this call. So affiliates, welcome. We are going to talk about accumulating intel about the seller and the property, which is critical to having a successful listing presentation. We're going to talk about metrics that matter, market strategy, CMA, and the pricing. So I just wanted to create the right expectations for you. We're going to touch over everything. And what I encourage you to do is look into Sales Pro for a virtual Outlast. That's where we're going to take what we talk about, and we're really going to dive in over 4 weeks on really creating a great pre-list packet, a listing presentation, knowing how to market the listing, communicate with your seller, and get it from contract to close. So again, that's in Outlast. Let's talk about some best practices for achievement today. Among one of the best things about being an independent real estate agent is your freedom to run your business your own way. Through your day-to-day decisions and client interactions, you're the architect of your success. The Ultimate Listing Presentation was created to take advantage of key insights from our top producers. We've carefully studied and assembled this information to share their expertise with you. In fact, maybe some of you are on the call or some of the agents that were interviewed for the content that we utilize. This material, again, contains the best practice of elite real estate professionals, but what you do with it in your own business is up to you. My hope today is that you will be inspired to maybe learn more, to get into some more trainings, and utilize these powerful modules in your business to succeed at their level and beyond. So here's to listings first. Before we explore how to build the ultimate listing presentation, let's talk and focus on why you should have a listing-based business and why your listing presentation is going to be key to your success. From all the agents we've talked to, and it's kind of a common number out there, that the most lucrative agents' businesses are 60 to 70% listing focused and 30-40% buyers. And some of you that are newer to the business may ask, why is that? So let's talk about that. I like to call it the ATM. When you have seller-focused listings, you get to attract more people. So the A is for attraction. When I have a listing, I get to put a sign in the yard. I get to create a single property website. I get to send out just listed postcards, just sold postcards. I get to hold an open house. If you're in an area that has listing concierge, you get to create a TV ad. So you get to do many things that will attract potential buyers and sellers to you. If I'm working with a buyer is not going to let me create a property website saying, hey, Sandra Kerr's our agent, call her if you need anything. The only thing you're really going to attract from a buyer is referrals that you continually have to ask for. And then there's the time factor. Seller listings maximize your compensation. It takes a lot less time to obtain and market a listing prior to sale than it takes to show multiple homes to a buyer. And sellers don't always have that, we got to go right now, we got to see that house right now, urgency that buyers demand. So you're better able to control your scheduling, and then there's the money. When I go out on a listing presentation and through my negotiations, I get to negotiate what I get paid and what we're going to pay out to the other side. When you're working only with buyers, you just get paid whatever's in the MLS. So those are some of the great reasons to have a seller-focused business, your ATM. And in addition to that, a listing-based business can be profitable, it's scalable, and it's much more stable. So what do I mean by that? Profitable. We just discussed with attraction that when you have a listing, you have the ability to parlay it into additional listings and buyer-controlled sales from your position as that listing agent. And for scalability, there's only so many hours in a day. You can service more sellers in the same time that you can a buyer. And then the stability of it. When you have a listing agreement, you have a much higher rate of predictability of getting paid than you do when you're working with buyers. Buyers right now are just not as loyal as they used to be. So that is another benefit of having a listing-based business. I have a little bit more predictability in the closing. And with listings come inventory. With inventory comes market share, and that's going to help you with your value proposition. So let's talk about the evolution of a listing agent. Most successful agents go through an evolution in building their business. They begin with buyers, but quickly encounter some scalability issues that we were talking about. I've got 7 buyers and they all want to go see property on Saturday. How am I going to do that? But if I have 7 listings, I can manage that much better. There's only so many houses you can show in a day. Agents that have done this have found not only do listings take less time, but the tasks associated with the listing, such as your photography, placing signs in the yards, holding open houses, those can be delegated much more easily than any showing of buyers. Eventually, most successful agents have this epiphany. I have got to shift my focus from any client will do to I have got to get myself some listings and make those a priority. They then decide to take the time to take training, build tools, and structure their day to maximize their profitability. Let's see, can you guys put in the chat box? I just see somebody mention that they can only see a tiny picture of me. No, I should be tiny. I thought you meant the screen. When I show, I am tiny. But when I'm talking about a listing first mindset, it's not that I'm suggesting that you don't ever want to work with buyers. Helping buyers find the home of their dreams, or in some markets, just their needs is part of what most agents love about their job. So a listing first mindset is successful agents adopt to ensure that the servicing of their buyers does not distract them from finding winning listings and leveraging both sides of the business. So raise your hand. You all have a little hand that you can raise. I see some stuff going on in the chat box. I will be coming in and out of video, so you will see me come and go. I'm not going to be in the video at all time. I can kind of see the chat. But raise your hand if you've had that epiphany. I am not working with any more buyers. I have got to get more listings. I am spending so much time. If you took the time I spent in my car with them, if I did get paid, I basically paid them to buy their house. I see a lot of hands going up over there. Keep going. Yes, yes. So we all get to that point. But again, there's a lot of love in working with buyers, but there is more stability when you have a listing-based business. And I think a lot of us can see that in our markets right now that we're in. So now that we're all on the same page when it comes to the importance of listings to your business, let's move on to how to win the listing with the listing presentation. So according to NAR, their 2018 profile of home buyers and sellers, most sellers, now again, every market's a little different, but from what they got from their data, most sellers only interview one agent. So that means that if you go on a listing appointment, you may have 75% chance of winning that listing. So the better your listing presentation is, the less likely they are to list with anyone else. So let's get into some tools and tactics. How do you create an ultimate listing presentation? In this section, I'm going to share with you some techniques that the top agents that we interviewed shared with us that are their best practices. So let's get into that. We're going to start with the ABCD. Oops, hang on just a second here, y'all. My screen on my side got fast. Give me just a second here. Technology, it's fun for all of us, right? I'm still learning this, so a little patience is great. Hang on here, let me just get back. Here we go. We researched these top agents to determine the best practice for their presentations. The results overwhelmingly showed us that they have a lot of the same goals, and we're going to talk about those in a minute. They're ABCDs, but how they do them can be in different orders, but they really want you to consider what exactly they're referring to. So we've got A, we are going to accumulate intel, and then, come on, slide. Come on, there we go. Accumulate intel. You want to be the master of your market. You want to convey your marketing strategy at the listing presentation, and you're going to discuss the home's market position. So let's break this down and talk about accumulating intel. You're going to have a pre-qualification call with the seller. Pre-qualification with the seller is step one, and usually that is done over the phone. We all know that not all listing opportunities are created equally, but your pre-qualification is going to help you determine the seller's motivation, what their wants and needs are, and maybe overcome some objections at the listing presentation by asking some of the right questions. Knowledge is power. By learning some of these in advance, it will really help you. You'll also accumulate some more intel as you do the walkthrough of the property. It's an essential part of determining the right price for the home. And you're going to learn about the selling points and things that could be potential issues. You're also going to be reestablishing your relationship with the seller at the walkthrough. And then you're going to sit down and talk a little bit more on their needs analysis. So this is all different times during the pre-list and the listing presentation that you'll be gathering information. Let's go on from here. So accumulating intel about the property. Raise your hand if you feel that your set of questions for pre-qualifying the seller is stellar. You know how to go in there and you know how to ask that seller every question that you need to go back. I say go in there, you're on the phone, but get all the information that you need so you can put together the right listing presentation. Raise your hand if you feel that you do a really good job of that so you don't have surprises at the listing presentation itself. You don't have objections that you weren't ready for thrown at you. Got a couple hands here. Fewer hands than I would like to see, so good. I'm glad that we're talking about that. So knowledge is power. You need to learn the particulars of each seller's individual situation before you walk through their door to enable you to tailor your listing presentation to fit their wants and needs. And again, everyone is going to be different, so the more knowledge you have in advance, the more you can include in the presentation, and you can own some potential objections before they own you at the listing presentation. So going back to that phone call of pre-qualifying the seller, ask questions, but this is not the time to get into discussion. You want to have short little responses to the questions, like, great, I understand, of course. Take notes on those. So intel on the property and intel on the seller. Again, this is on that phone call to help you prepare for either A, your pre-list packet that you're going to send over. We'll talk a little bit about that, or at the actual listing presentation, or both. Let's talk about motivation. So here's some sample questions that you might ask the seller. Why are you selling? How soon do you need to be there? What would happen if your home doesn't sell in that time frame? So as I learn motivation, I'm going to learn where they may and may not be flexible when it comes to pricing or any offers that we receive. You can always go back to their motivation. Hey, I realize that this may not have been the offer that you were looking for. It's the only offer we've received, and if we want to accomplish your goal of you getting to New York by the 30th, I really think that you need to take this offer, right? You can negotiate that way with the seller when you know their motivation. And then we want to find out about their ability. And what do I mean by that? Are they on title? Is everyone on title in agreement to sell? Are they upside down on the property? Do they have any equity? So I need to find out if this is actually a viable listing opportunity and how they'll do. And then experience. Ask them, is this the first time you've sold a home? If they say no, great. Let me ask you a few things. If you've sold homes in the past, when you think back, share with me some of the things that you felt that the agent did really, really well for you. I would love to know what you really, really liked. And then also, were there some things that weren't done that you would like to see now that you're listing your home again? You never want to say anything negative about a past listing agent or go to a negative at this point and get their mind thinking there. So try to find the positive at this point. And then if they say, no, this is our first home, we've never sold it, well, then you know what? I'm the perfect agent for you. I'm going to hold your hand the entire way. You won't be able to get rid of me. I will make sure you feel safe and comfortable. And then there's the property intel, just the basics about it, right? How many bedrooms, baths, square footage, how long have you been there? And then pricing. You might wonder, well, what do you mean about price one when you're just asking them questions on the phone? And what I mean by that is, so Mr. Seller, let me ask you, what do you feel your home is worth? Oh, Sandra, that's up to you. That's why what do you think it's worth? Oh, well, you know what? Until I see your property and I go in and do my homework, I'm not sure, but I know that you are just like every other seller I work with, and you've probably been all over the internet, and I know you have an idea in your mind. Just share with me, what is it? Okay, well, we have 800,000 in our mind. Now, if you know that it's probably 600,000, this is not the time to say, are you kidding me? You just say, okay, great. Let me ask you, where did you get that information from? And we know that most likely Zillow or one of the others. And all I want to do, I don't want to debate with them at this point. I just want to say, okay, great. Because now, as I prepare my listing presentation, I know that for Coldwell Banker brand, we use a product called Moxie for our CMA. And in some of our pre-done templates, we have a Zestimate sheet in there where we can pull in Zillow and how far off they were. You maybe use some other type of CMA tool, but being able to find out if it works to my benefit, how far off Zillow or wherever they went was, it's just going to give me stronger positioning at the presentation. So I like to ask that. If you can get it out of them, great. Sometimes they just won't budge, so you just drop it. Okay. So yes. Will we get these slides emailed to him? Yes, you will. I will send those out over the weekend or by Monday. Moving on, let's talk about your mastery of the market. Be the master of the market. However much the sellers may have researched their home online, they don't have access to the data that you have through the MLS. So what you command of these insights, when you command these insights, you're demonstrating your knowledge and power. And we're going to break that down into a few different areas of the mastery of the market and the metrics that you can use that you have at your disposal. And simply just telling a seller, hey, I'm so awesome. Haven't you seen my commercial on TV? You want to hire me. That just doesn't cut it anymore. But being able to share specific measurable metrics and results from your business gives added proof and credibility to you. So what do I mean by that? There's some information that you can gather that you can incorporate into your presentation to build credibility for you. Some of those are foundational data points, such as market stratification. So what does that mean? That means how buyers are grouped together when they're looking. Hey, Mr. Seller, currently we have a lot of first-time or entry-level buyers in the marketplace, and they're between $250 and $400. Then in our medium range price band right now, we don't have a lot going on between $500 and $700, but in our $800 and higher, we have a really active marketplace right now. So knowing just the types of bands and how buyers are grouped together and how they're looking in the current market is very helpful. And then getting the data for average days on market. That's always critical to whatever story you want to sell. So when I'm putting together my CMA, if I already know in advance that my seller is likely to want to overprice their property, I can set my market analysis up to show them, hey, these properties did this many price reductions and took this long to sell before they got to the market price that it was bearing, and that was 180 days. You don't want to be on the market, but you can see where this property was market priced properly according to the market at that day, it sold in 5 days. And then list to sales ratio, I'm going to break this down a little further. When you are able to calculate list to sale ratios, you'll find that it's extremely effective with your sellers and your buyers. And then we want to talk about factors influencing supply and demand. Is this a buyer's market? Is it a seller's market? I know here in the San Francisco Bay Area, we have been in a seller's market for so long. It's been really challenging. We're really tight on inventory. But some of you may be in an area where currently there is a lot of houses on the market, so that would make it a buyer's market. They are able to negotiate much more with sellers, and sellers are taking less for their homes than they would in a seller's market. And then what are some things that influence desirability, right? Do they need to be by public transit? Is it near a resort town? What are some of the things that are influencing the particular area that you're in? So those are some things that you want to look for and gather to speak to at your listing presentation. So here are 3 different examples of how you can say something and how you can take it and turn it into something much more powerful. So our first one is the homes that I list sell fast. The second is the homes that I sell homes that I list sell in an average of 12 days, or best, the homes that I list sell in an average of 12 days compared to the average of 23 days on the market. Now, if you're new to the business and newer to the business and you don't have these types of stats, please don't worry about it. You can use your office stats. So and I'm going to do a little caveat here also to you newer people, if you do have an opportunity to go on a listing presentation and it's not a friend or a family member where you know no matter what you've got it, I really strongly encourage you to partner with a seasoned agent in your office and have them join you on the listing presentation, share the commission with them, get and win the listing, and learn from them doing that. And I might even do that my first 3 transactions, so you can start being able to use these metrics and start to say the homes that I list. But if you're not winning any listings, you don't have that data. So that's just a little something from me to you, for my newer people. This is an example. There's an agent that I work with in Carmel that sends out a new newsletter, but she gets this information, and because she knows this and does this every week, if anyone were to ask her what is going on in the market, she knows the metrics to share, and this is what you're going to need to know when you're talking to your seller about pricing. For example, she talks about the largest sale, how much inventory, how many price reductions there have been, how many new listings have come on the market, how many are off the market, how many escrows have been opened and closed sales, because all of that data is going to tell a story when it comes to your pricing. Then she's gone on and she discusses the number of lists. Oops, sorry, y'all. Hang on. Speed racer here. She talks about the number of listings and breaks it down by different areas in there. She talks about price per square foot, and then she gets them in the days on market to help tell her story. So again, you will want to do all sorts of research to find those numbers for whatever market that you're in, and that will raise your confidence when you're talking. And to my newer people, if you know this type of data and somebody asks you, hey, well, what's going on in the Willow Glen market? Oh, well, I'm so glad you asked. You know, there's currently 30 listings on the market. We've seen 15 go pending in the last 25 days. We've had 4 closed escrows. In fact, Coldwell Banker has 60% of the listings in that market. Whatever the data is, and you can get that from your MLS and from your manager. So those are the types of things that sellers want to hear right now. In fact, I was just on a call with some of our top elite agents, and one of them just mentioned on the call that this is the type of information that buyers and sellers want to know in this uncertain time. You have to be really, really hyper local and tell them exactly all the numbers and data that's going on. So keep that in mind, and I hope that you will really go play with that and get into your MLS and start looking at it. So we talked earlier about the list to sales ratio. So the list to sales ratio is going to be the final sales price divided by the last list price, and then you're going to multiply it by 100 to get a percentage. And it's a lot of words there, so I went ahead and put numbers. So in my first example, the list price was $299,000, and it sold for less than that. The sales price was $275,000. So that divided into the list price comes to 0.95 times 100 is 95%. So that one sold 95% of list. So if I'm working with a seller and I'm trying to tell them what's going on in the market, Mr. Seller, you're wanting to go on at 106% of list price, but you can see nothing has sold over that. So unless you want to make everybody look like a bargain and you just sit there, we really need to be where the market is. And then the second example is the list price was $600,000. The sales price was $620,000, which it sold above list. So that came out to 103% with the formula. So maybe I'm working with a buyer, and a buyer wants to lowball. And I can say, hey, buyer, look at all these properties are selling 103 to 106% over list price, and you're wanting to come in at 95%. No one's going to look at your offer. So do you want to just practice writing offers, or do you really want to get into a home? And how is your family going to feel if 6 months from now you still don't have a property? So you can use this list to sale ratio in any way to tell the story that you want it to tell. Moving on here. So you want to convey the value of your marketing strategy. Marketing sells listings that have been priced correctly. It's kind of a 1-2 punch. When you know how and where buyers are searching, it's going to help you refine your marketing tactics and tools to complement your pricing strategy. And if you want to know, I'm pretty sure that everyone on this call has access to the CBX Buyer Locator. It's in the CB Exchange. And what that is it's data and analytics and predictability that we can utilize on a listing presentation to say, hey, Mr. Seller, we have data that's proprietary to us at Coldwell Banker that I could use to see the most predictable place of a likely buyer for your property. And that would be a benefit to you, wouldn't it? And you start to get those little yeses. Because of that, I also will have the ability to target market those certain areas instead of just throwing a wide net without any intention. And again, targeting the people that would be the most likely buyers for your property is important, isn't it? Starting to get these little yeses along the way in the listing presentation. So when you go to close, they're already accustomed. So keep that in mind with your open-ended questions. So in addition to whatever your marketing presentation is, we have listing concierge here in our area. You can go in and do your 12-minute listing presentation, and that's kind of like a 1-2 punch. But there are some other things that you'll want to talk about. So let's talk about what they are. Sharing your track record. So how many homes have you listed and sold in this area? How do you utilize the tools? And again, if you're new, use the office statistics. And then elevate it. Demonstrate how you're going to take the marketing opportunities to a level that other agents just can't touch. For example, the average agent markets using the 3 Ps. They put a sign in your yard, they put it on the MLS, and then they pray, right? A little Friday humor here, y'all. But let me just share with you how I do so much more to make sure your home gets the maximum exposure. And then you want to create a partnership with them. Share how you're going to market their home. Get their feedback and build some team spirit around how they can participate in helping expose their home. This will allow for some assumptive closes along the way. For example, hey, Mr. Seller, no one knows your house better than you. I'm going to consult with you in developing some of the materials to make sure that we're showcasing the best features of your home and of your property. I'm at the listing presentation. Once you get there, it's no longer a home, it's a house and a property. I'll also share our materials with you so you can spread the word as well. So you want to start getting that partnership. And when I'm saying things like this, I'm already building in that, hey, I've already got the listing. We're already working together. Let's see here. Create dialogue. So I've got some dialogues in here to help you out. So create an online presence. More than 77.3% of the U.S. population has internet access, and 88% of all buyers start their home search online. So share that statistic with them, and then share how you will utilize that in your marketing. Hey, Mr. Seller, I believe your first showing actually happens online. So I'm going to make sure that we create significant digital exposure through the following ways. I'm going to feature your property on the Coldwell Banker websites. I'm going to activate listing syndication, and we syndicate out to more than 900 websites. I'm going to post your listing on my social media platforms. That way we'll get feedback on the property as well as the buyers. But before I upload it, I'm going to send everything to you for your feedback and get your final approval. Let me ask you, what social media platforms are you on? Instagram, great. I'm going to provide copies of everything for you to upload onto some of your personal favorites from yourself also. And then I'm also going to activate my grapevine because we found that 35% of buyers learn about their home through another agent. I'm going to make sure that everyone in my extensive network hears from me personally about your home. And my plan is to send an email blast to my 1,020 people in my database. I'm going to calendar a broker open and invite all the other agents in the area to come see your wonderful home. And I'm going to share it at my local meetings and with our local MLS. So those are some suggestions. Again, there's many different ways to do this. This is just a way for those that don't have a dialogue yet to get going to start thinking about it. So discussing the market position. The word price evokes determined amount. It's an exception for your client. It sets the expectation for your client of what they view as a goal number to get for their home. Whereas positioning says that this is just a home position within a given range in our current real estate market. It's a range. The number chosen by your client to list should be within that range. So for example, if I'm sitting at the listing presentation and we've gone over all the data, and I say, according to what the market is saying, where your home would be positioned, if we went on the market today, we would go on between 625 and 632. So within that price range, Mr. Seller, where would you like to start? Now remember, if there's going to be prep work and time to get your home on the market, you continue the conversation with, hey, Mr. Seller, if we were to go on the market today, between this range, between here and here, where would you like to start? Now, when we actually go on the market, that could be a much different number depending on what we do to prep your home for sale. And then we'll reevaluate at that time and we'll adjust it because your home is a commodity. Your property is a commodity, right? The value changes daily. It's just like a stock. So today's rate is between here and here, but when we actually go on the market, it may be something different. So you want to give them a range, let them know that the value changes and it fluctuates, and you can even use something to the effect of, we can start within this range. The market never lies. It will tell us if we're priced right, whether or not we're getting multiple offers or no offers at all. So these are just some things that you can think about when you're having that market position conversation with them. So again, what would you like to put into your CMA? Whether or not you're presenting a full CMA to your prospective sellers, you as a market expert should always have one at your fingertips. It's really wise to be clear on your language when you're communicating your findings to the sellers because they may not be familiar with all of our real estate terminology. And again, I've slipped up a couple times, but home is an emotional word. And sellers may tell you that other homes are not comparable to their home. In that case, when you start referencing everything as properties, you may need to incorporate that into your communication. So as you're going through your market analysis, here are properties that are comparable to yours. These properties, and your property compares to this one because of this. We want to start, if we can, start taking that emotion out of it. So what do you want in your CMA? Again, you need the basics of their particular property. How many bedrooms, baths, square foot, etc. The next thing you want to do is you want to run an MLS search to find comparable homes. And then you're going to sort through all of those comps to find the ones that would be best to partner with that. And if you're in an area where there haven't been a lot of sales, it can get a little challenging. And if you're new, you may want to partner with an agent in your office or talk to your manager because you may have to learn how can you find comps that where there haven't been a lot of sales recently. It's an interesting time now. Then you want to analyze, compare the comps that you're picking, and then connect the dots. So going forward with that, you want to prep for that conversation. How does this current housing market affect your sellers? What's the market doing? Who's your competition? And then again, within that range, pick the price. The market position conversation should have a cooperative spirit with it. You're not there to just win the listing solely on price, but rather the value that you're going to provide and the rapport and trust that you build. You want to work with the seller to interpret the data, and in the end, hopefully congratulate them on a great decision on listing within your price range. You also want to prep for the market conversation and some common objections. Objections happen. They're a good thing. Objection means that the seller is fully engaged and they offer you an opportunity to show some value and build the relationship. So here's two of the most common that we get. So why don't you take the chat box? How would some of you respond to these? I want to list for more. Let's take a moment. I'm going to look at the chat box. Does anyone want to take a stab at that? Select all panelists and all attendees if you are typing. If not, I'll just jump on in and give you an idea. I don't see anything in there yet. So I'll just take a stab at it. I want to list for more. You want to list for a higher price. I do understand that. And most sellers feel like you do. And then just like now, when they see what the homes are selling for in this market, they realize that they have to price it correctly if they want it sold. I know it's really hard and disappointing to find out that the market's not bearing what you wanted the home to, but if you need to get to your destination within the next 90 days, this is something we really need to do. Let's look at the chat here. Price right and sell faster with multiple offers. That's a strategy. Let's see here. By overpricing, we may miss buyers in this actual price range. Yes. That's when I go back to days on market. Yes. So I want to list for more. We're going to cover this on the next slide too, but that's one sample dialogue. And then here's another one. Can we at least try the higher price? We can always drop it later if we don't get an offer. Raise your hand if you've ever heard that on a listing presentation. Yeah, I see hands going up there, right? That's so common. Does anyone want to take a stab at that in the chat box right now? We can at least try a higher price. We can always drop it later. Give you a second there. If you start high, you have to work backwards, and that could drive your price down. Oops, I'm sorry, y'all. Exactly. Something that I might say here is, that's a great question. If I might be asking the same thing. However, the best chance that we have to get your home sold for the most price and then net you the most amount would be to price it right today. Because unfortunately, as the number of days on the market increase, and this kind of goes to that working backwards chat, interest in showings decrease and the likelihood of offers below list price increase with it. And now that you know that, I'm certain that you would want to go and price it correctly. Something that I talk about, and I think I'll talk about it on the next slide, is impact pricing. Hey, Mr. Seller, buyers are so savvy today, and they have so much access to information. They know their numbers. They've been watching the market. They know what's a well-priced home and what isn't. So the first 2 weeks is your impact pricing. We have seen time and time again, statistically, that is the best opportunity that you have to get the highest and best price for yours. So I again suggest that we stay within that impact pricing range of this and this, right? But if they don't want to do that, then you have to have that overpricing conversation. So here's a slide, and y'all will get this. Again, I'll send these slides out to you. If you do utilize Moxie for your CMA and you have the Coldwell Banker tools, there is a slide, and it's a pyramid, and it shows the seller how the effect of overpricing a home can affect them. But your job is to help that seller set the price right the first time so they achieve their goals and you can achieve yours. So again, show them this graph. If their motivation is money, emphasize how much they ultimately stand to lose if their property is overpriced. If their motivation is time, then emphasize how much longer by days on market it takes to sell their property. You've got to make it clear that if they overprice their property the first time, there is no easy remedy. Your best chance to get that highest amount is when you first hit the market. Again, like I said, buyers are so savvy today, and they have information at their disposal like never before. In fact, even out here in the San Francisco Bay Area, we have seen a number of prices go down, and buyers still are not coming off the market because they know that they could come a little bit lower, and they would rather continue renting than feel like they are overpaying for something. So here's a little bit of dialogue that you can say. Hey, I understand the desire to get as much as you can for your home. Many of my past sellers felt the same way. However, the best opportunity to get the highest price for your property is when we first come on the market, and I call that impact pricing. As you can see, if you don't hit the impact price, you will end up taking less later. And when you're overpriced, you help the other homes that you're competing against sell because you make them look at a bargain. If you go to buy a house and you're looking in a neighborhood and there's similar homes, now again, this is if there's similar properties, it's always different if it's a unique home, but for the most part, if you've got 3 or 4 homes in an area that are fairly similar and you have one priced up here and the rest are priced here, Mr. Seller, which one are you making an offer on? Right? You're going to become a buyer after you sell this. You're going to have the same data at your disposal as the buyers that are looking at your home. So when you go to buy a home, if the list price is here, but the data is here and you're not competing, are you still going to offer that price? Probably not. And that's how buyers are looking at yours. So again, it's so critical for us to hit it right off the mark. You've got to be able to get back to that. So you've got to practice dialogues, practice overcoming objections. And I tell people when I teach classes, it's kind of like your GPS, right? You have a destination that you're trying to get to, and you have to know every alternative route to get there, because if you start down one path of overcoming an objection and they throw something up, you have to know how to recalculate and still find a way to get to that destination. And practicing dialogues and overcoming objections is the best way that you're going to do that. So I strongly encourage you, get a dialogue buddy and practice this, because it is really critical. And, you know, it's an unusual time right now, so who knows what type of pricing conversations we're going to have 3 months from now. So practice with that. So prep for that market conversation and your market repositioning. Overpriced listings, unfortunately, are a reality in some part of our career. Now, some agents don't have a problem with taking an overpriced listing. If this listing is a fabulous home and I am going to pick up a lot of other buyers and sellers off of that, I might go in saying, hey, I'll take this overpriced listing. It's never going to sell, but I'm going to pick up so many other buyers and sellers off of it. It's worth it for me. Now, if it's an overpriced home that is in not good condition, then I'm probably not going to want to do that. So it's a personal thing. You have to decide what's right with you. Everything is going to be unique in your market and at that point in time, but that's just something to consider. Awareness is key. Be proactive. Set the stage for future market repositionings at your listing presentation. So if I am trying to talk to that seller and they're not willing to stay within that range, I might want to let them feel like they have a little bit of a win. Say, you know, Mr. Seller, the market says that we should be on between 6 and 625, and I know that you have your heart set on 650. I tell you what, I want to show you that I'm willing to work with you. I will agree to go ahead, and I'm willing to list your home at 650 and go on the market with that if you will do something for me. I want to go ahead and put right here in the listing agreement within the first 2 weeks, if we have not received any offers, that then we will go ahead and position it within this price range. So I'm willing to work with you if you're willing to work with me. And I would build it right into that listing agreement, because if you come back to them 2 weeks later and say, hey, you said you'd lower your price, you'll get, oh, can we try it one more week? Can we try it one more week? And they're going to one more week you. until they get to the point where they feel that, you know what, you're not doing a good job for us. We're going to go ahead and give the listing to somebody else. And then they always list it at the price you've been begging them. So try to overcome that. Something else that I used to do, depending on what type of market you're in, I had multiple price modification forms with me, and I had them sign them all up front. So every few weeks, I could just go on into the MLS and change the list price without having to go back and ask them if it was okay, because that's never a win. You're constantly going to be in communication with them when you're on the market, talking about what's going on in the market, having those pricing conversations. But those little tips sometimes can really help you. And point out that your market position is a moving target. With each new listing that comes on the market, each sale that closes, and other price repositioning, that's going to impact their property too. And they're going to have to be flexible and move with it also. Then the most important part, close for the listing. If you don't ask, the answer is always no. And I teach Outlist Outlast often. And how many of you have gotten in the trap of, let me clear all the hands over here, gotten in the trap of talking too much at your listing presentation and maybe talking the seller out of listing with you because you did not know when to stop and close? Yes, sometimes people think we get nervous and we think we need to keep talking and we need to go through everything. I brought this whole book. We need to go through the whole thing, but you haven't been watching for cues where you could have closed for the listing early. I see some hands going up there. So some tips that I like to share that maybe help you with that. Have an agenda when you go to your listing presentation and have everything that you're going to talk about. So if they do start to derail you and take you down that rabbit hole in the conversation, make sure you look at that so you get back on track and make sure you have covered everything that you've wanted to cover. But as I mentioned earlier, I asked a lot of open questions. Hey, that would be a benefit to you, Mr. Seller. Don't you agree? That would help your home sell faster. Don't you agree? Getting all those little yeses along the way. So as I've been going through my marketing plan with them, and we've talking about things together, and I'm getting a lot of those yeses, I might just stop right there and say, do you know what? It sounds like we're in agreement about most of this. Do you just want to get the paperwork out of the way and let's really get to planning? And then just be quiet and just see what they say. They might say, let's do it, right? And if they say, well, I'm not sure, say, hey, that's perfectly understandable. I must not have given you enough information about something. So why don't you share with me, what haven't we discussed that we can go ahead and talk about now? Because I want to make sure that I've answered all of your questions. So is there anything that I haven't asked you or discussed yet that you would like to talk about or anything you would like to revisit? So I'm going to stop there to see kind of what's giving them pause and see if I can overcome that objection, so then I can try to close again. But moving forward, again, you always have to ask for it. Always have a listing agreement and a pen ready when you get to this point. And again, here are some dialogues from some of the people that we interviewed. I just ask, are you ready to move forward? We've had a lot of good conversations at this point, so I usually have a pretty good sense of where they are within the process. Another agent we talked to said, at the CMA, I say, based on what you've seen, based on the price range between $625 and $650, where do you want to start? If they give you an acceptable range, hey, we're on the same page. Let's just go ahead and get the paperwork out of the way and get planning. It's a natural progression. Just go ahead and get the paperwork done. Does anybody have any close that they use that they want to share in the chat real quick? And make sure your drop down says all panelists and attendees. Anybody want to share a closing that they use? We have 118 people on this call. I'm sure somebody's got something that they're willing to share. No, it's Friday and y'all want to get done. Well, we are all of us done. We are in the home stretch. So let's move on. Looking forward, let's spend a few minutes about talking what is next for you. So make it happen. Pick and commit to what you're going to do next to create your ultimate listing presentation. Determine on how you're going to get that intel. Maybe come up with some questions that you're going to ask the seller. I will, in my recap, send you a document called Words That Work. It's just numerous pages of sample dialogues. And again, with dialogues, keep in mind that these aren't meant for you to say verbatim. It's just to get your mind thinking so you understand what you're saying and why you're saying it. So I'll send those out in my recap. Again, dialogues that we send out, anything that we talk about is just a suggestion, and we want you to get your mind thinking. But any dialogue should be authentically you, because that's what's going to be the best. And always verify information if you're just talking about a dialogue. But you'll also want to gather that data that will help you be the master of the market. How many current inventories? How many price reductions have you had? How many things have gone into escrow? How many things have fallen, gone canceled, withdrawn, etc.? Have all of that data together when you sit down with them. Prepare the pricing conversation. How are you going to explain what's going on in the market and where their home would be positioned in that? And then again, look into workshops that are offered near you. Sales Pro is a great place. Again, we are doing virtual Outlist Outlast, so I would highly encourage you, if this has piqued your interest into really delving in and learning more about it, that's going to be the place for you to do that. Does anyone have any tips or tricks that they want to share with anyone? No? Well, then I'm going to type in if you all will go to nrtevals.com and review this webinar. Again, my name is Sandra Kerr, and you took this virtually. And then whatever region you're in, that will be really helpful for feedback. We really love feedback on how I did, how the webinar was. Again, this is just an overview of the ultimate listing presentation, but your feedback is important. So again,